We might pray as if everything depends on God, but when it comes down to what we actually do, we work like it depends on us. We become slaves to our busy schedules, to our calendars, our offices, our classrooms, our iPhones. We become slaves to ourselves, to our own sense of self-importance, slaves to our own anxieties and fears. And where has all that gotten us? I mean, if you think about it, Americans are among the most hardworking, most industrious, longest hours on the planet kind of people. We take fewer breaks, fewer vacations. We're also the most medically and spiritually depressed people. We have the highest incidence of heart disease, of ulcers, of depression. We're tired. We're fatigued, more so than any other country. We have more incidence of broken bodies and broken relationships. We have withered hands. We don't talk about them with the same words, but we have carpal tunnel. We have tension headaches and migraines. We have arthritis. We have pain and swelling in our joints. And we have marriages and families and communities that are falling apart under the weight of the stress that we put on ourselves. We have extra hours spent at the office or studying at the library. These are all hours that we are not spending with family or with friends. And it takes a toll on us. I think maybe we could take Exodus 31 a little bit more seriously when it says that death is the consequence of violating the Sabbath. Maybe not death so much as a punishment from God, but death that comes from missing out on the blessing and the benefit that Sabbath offers to us. Work-related afflictions are a kind of death. People get so stressed and it leads to heart disease that literally kills them. Weakened bonds of family and community are a kind of death. So why do we continue to choose this? Why do we put our lives on the line for the sake of our work? Maybe because we've forgotten why God gave us Sabbath in the first place. Did you notice when we read in Deuteronomy, the command for Sabbath is given with an explanation? It's not just a top 10 list. It's not just, here's the rule, now go do it. No, the Sabbath commandment calls Israel to remember their liberation from slavery in Egypt. God stretched out his mighty hand and rescued these slaves, liberated Israel from the toil of relentless work. The Sabbath is the symbol of Israel's liberation, that they were no longer slaves to their Egyptian overlords. They could spend a day a week reveling in their freedom. The Sabbath was freedom. Freedom from the lash, freedom from the overseer, freedom from the backbreaking labor that they experienced under the Egyptian sun. It was a celebration of the fact that they were no longer slaves to Pharaoh. He was not their master, but they had a new master, Yahweh, the Lord, the kind of master who made time for them to rest, who gave them a Sabbath, a day on which he would make them holy, sanctified. No wonder Jesus gets so angry at the Pharisees. The Pharisees had turned this wonderful gift, this reminder of their liberation from slavery, into another obligation, into another rule. By their strict rules and their nitpicking, they had turned Sabbath into a marker of righteousness. How do you make sure that God is happy with you? How do you be a good Jew? You follow these rules. They turned Sabbath into work, and it was more work to keep the Sabbath than it was to break it. This thing that was supposed to remind them of their liberation had become one more yoke around their necks when they couldn't even heal on the Sabbath day. They couldn't even rest because of all that they had to worry about they were not doing right. And Jesus just wouldn't have it. Jesus said, you can't do Sabbath that way. It completely misses the point. Now, it's not that Jesus didn't care about observing Sabbath. It's not that he wanted to make it optional. And given the busyness that we value in our culture, maybe that would be a convenient interpretation. Since we all have so much to do, wouldn't it be great if we could just write off that day of rest and use that to get more of our stuff done? We'd sure get a lot more accomplished. But that's not what Jesus says about Sabbath. Look through the Gospels. He never once denounces the Sabbath. He never dismisses it. He never says it's something that we can give up if it's inconvenient. When he comes along and disrupts the Pharisees' practice of Sabbath, he's not saying stop doing it. He's saying stop doing it this way and start doing it the way that God intended.